Dr. Berg says low carbs and fasting boost testosterone, but Ray Peat would call that a stress recipe. Let's break down what really supports testosterone from a metabolic perspective. So right now, I'm just gonna break down Dr. Berg's video on 7 ways to boost testosterone, and I'll commentate over everything that he says. Let's get into it.
Let's talk about the 7 ways that you can boost your testosterone. These are natural things you can do. The first thing is to make sure you do not lower your cholesterol. You want to increase your cholesterol. Do not go on a low-fat diet. Why? Because cholesterol is the precursor, the building blocks that help make testosterone. And that's one of the problems too when your doc puts you on statins. Statins block cholesterol, which then end up lowering testosterone. And that is one big challenge. So I'm not telling you not to take your statin. All I'm saying is that you might want to research it, get with your doctor, and find out the real reason why your cholesterol might be high. And I have some videos on that. Instead of just treating the symptom, let's find out what the actual cause is. But you don't want to go low on the cholesterol if you want high testosterone. Let's talk about protein.
So he's right mentioning that cholesterol is important for testosterone production. So your body takes LDL cholesterol, vitamin A, and T3, which is active thyroid, and you produce pregnenolone. And for pregnenolone is like the foundation hormone that your body then can produce testosterone from. He mentioned to avoid low-fat diets, because his theory is that you can only get cholesterol from dietary sources of cholesterol. But when you look at it from a bioenergetic view, the way your body produces cholesterol is from things like sugar. So your body can produce cholesterol from sugar, and from that you can produce protective hormones. One of the reasons why sugar was demonized was because your body produces cholesterol from sugar. And this was in the same time that cholesterol was demonized. So when you switch it, sugar consumption will increase your cholesterol, which then you can produce protective hormones. This is why bears consume honey during hibernation. This is why fruit is more abundant during summer and fruitful times, you could say. So sugar is important for keeping your cholesterol high. Other reasons why people may have low cholesterol levels would be due to gut issues, high endotoxin, things like that. Malnutrition also. So when I work with clients, when you get a blood test done, checking your cholesterol levels will give you an insight of what's going on. Low cholesterol levels are very problematic, not just for your testosterone, but for other things as well, like your brain health, so on and so forth. So cholesterol is important. But besides cholesterol, and he's going to talk about it more, your body needs the other factors like active thyroid and vitamin A to convert that cholesterol into pregnenolone. And so you produce testosterone. And he's right about the statins. You want to avoid them because it will artificially lower your cholesterol levels, which are extremely important for your protective hormones. So let's get into it.
Moderate protein. A myth is that you need a lot of protein to stimulate your testosterone. No, you need a moderate amount. Now, what's a moderate amount? Well, I'd say about between 6 to 8 ounces per meal. Now, I'm talking about the weight of the actual food, like a piece of steak or a hamburger or something like that. I'm not talking about the grams within that, because the grams within that is a lot less. I do have quite a few videos on protein. I'll put some down below if you want more information on that. But you just want to avoid too much protein. If you consume too much protein, you're going to get tired. And the reason why you're going to get tired is that you're like half of it can easily be turned into glucose. So when you turn it into glucose, because your body doesn't necessarily use amino acids as its fuel, some, but not much, it has to be converted into glucose to be used as fuel. So that excess amount of insulin that's triggered by the glucose is going to block your testosterone. So just do a moderate amount of protein. Number 3.
Yeah, so he mentions moderate amount of protein, which in theory I agree. Excess protein is problematic, especially the more protein you consume. Most likely you're going to consume more of the problematic amino acids. So when you have protein, you have like 1 gram of protein versus different foods like carbohydrates may have vitamins, minerals. Protein is divided into amino acids. So different parts of your body, like structures like your muscle, would have more of a certain amino acids versus your joints. So your joints would be high in protein, I believe, and then your muscle tissue higher in tryptophan. So consuming higher amount of protein is going to increase the consumption of the problematic amino acids like tryptophan, cysteine, so on and so forth. And he's right that your body can use protein as a fuel source rather than be used for repair through a process called gluconeogenesis. So glucose, new, genesis, creation, the new creation of glucose from amino acids that you're consuming. He said, you don't want to consume too much protein because you'll get tired. I think, and I know from working with clients and just when you actually look at it, when you consume protein, especially protein high in leucine, an amino acids, which is high in eggs, for example, it's very insulinogenic, which means the protein spikes the insulin, the amino acid. And then due to that, and you're in that moment, you're not consuming enough carbohydrates, your body is going to increase cortisol, which cortisol is a glucocorticoid, which converts your muscle tissue or the protein you just ate into carbohydrates, which can increase your stress hormones, in some cases tiredness, in some cases people even faint because of the drop in blood sugar, hence the recommendation of having 2-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. So if you're eating 20 grams of protein, you want to be consuming 40 grams of carbohydrates. The reason why he recommends the other way is because he looks at it from a ketosis point of view. He's going to go into point number 3 on low carbohydrates, why you should eat low carbs. And the reason why he recommends moderate protein is because higher protein intake kicks you out of ketosis. When I did ketosis, this was like 7 years ago. It's high fat diet, no carbohydrates, minimum protein. If you eat too much protein, it kicks you out of ketosis. So with number 2, I would say I agree with the moderate protein around 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. I have a calculator. If you go to free.fedursky.com, I'll leave a link down below. There's a calculator, how to calculate your macros. You can use it for free. And that's how I would set that up. But his reasoning would be different to my reasoning. So let's get into number 3.
You want to go low carbs for the same reason, because carbs increase insulin. So if we keep our insulin low, we can enhance testosterone and other beneficial hormones like growth hormone. Number 4, exercise.
Like there was a short point, but he said so many wrong things from a Peat point of view. So he mentioned you want to eat low carbohydrates because it will keep your insulin low. Like, I think his idea, I don't know if it's because he targets, like he has a lot of followers, like millions. So he's trying to look for a strategy that works best. And if you just tell people not to eat carbohydrates, they're not eating a third of possible calories. So the probability of them succeeding with his approach is higher, rather than me presenting you true knowledge and then you make a decision based off of that. So like protein consumption can increase insulin versus drinking orange juice will have a less increase in insulin because it has minerals like potassium, which acts like insulin. Also things like fructose, which is a carbohydrate, doesn't need insulin to get into the cell. It goes through the liver. So there's a lot of things that I don't know where he's getting his ideas from. Also, he mentioned you want higher growth hormone. From a repeat perspective, growth hormone is a problematic thing. When you look at research, people with higher, like mice with high growth hormone, lived shorter. Growth hormone is high in times of stress. Growth hormone improves the usage of free fatty acids for fuel, which is not a protective thing. It's a stress response. These hormones are high and good because they're protecting you in that moment. But if they're elevated for a prolonged period of time, they're problematic. So I disagree with that point about low carbohydrates. You want to be consuming plenty of carbohydrates to fuel you. Higher carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are also protein sparing because when you're not eating enough carbohydrates, which are used for fuel, your body is going to take the protein and convert it into, through gluconeogenesis, into fuel. So high carbohydrates, moderate protein, and fats, low-ish, not too low to stop fat-soluble vitamin absorption. And the carbohydrates will give you the possibility to convert it into cholesterol, and then the carbohydrates will allow T4 inactive thyroid to be converted into T3 active thyroid in your liver to then increase your protective hormones. So yeah, that's my stance on that point.
Will stimulate testosterone if it's high intensity interval training or exercise involving the whole body to the point where you're sweating, but not overtraining. But the problem is if you're not sleeping, you don't want to do that, okay? Because it's going to strain your heart. You want to do long walks for a while to lower the cortisol so you can sleep, so you can eventually add more exercise to then increase more testosterone. Now, just as a side note, and I didn't put this on this chart, is that I always recommend when you do low carb, it's called keto, you also do intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting improves growth hormone, and wherever growth hormone goes, testosterone goes. It tends to follow similar pathways. And so intermittent fasting is vital to keep your testosterone levels normal, because if you're doing snacks and frequent meals, you're just going to increase insulin and suppress testosterone. That is why a pre-diabetic or someone with insulin resistance or a diabetic normally always has low testosterone. And that's going to affect your muscle mass, and it's going to affect your libido and your energy. Number 5, sleep.
Yeah, so with the exercise thing, I definitely agree. Walking is better. Proper resistant training, short, to increase the androgens, definitely. And avoiding jogging, like medium intensity, which then teaches your body to be to have a slower metabolic rate. Hence why marathon runners have a lower metabolic rate. Their heart rate is very slow. A good metabolic protective range is 80 to 90 beats per minute from protective hormones. And the thing about intermittent fasting, like, I disagree. And I'm telling you because I've done intermittent fasting from the age of 16 to around the age of 20, so about 3-4 years. And the reason why intermittent fasting improved my state was because I was eating problematic foods, which you'll get into in a moment. And not eating problematic foods, so fasting is better than eating those foods. So you're going from something bad to something less bad. But an optimal state is giving your body the energy and fuel in the morning, in the middle of the day, giving your body energy, especially if you're in a low testosterone state, low metabolic state. Your liver can't store enough glycogen stores to keep you going without food. So if you're someone that wakes up at night frequently, that means the liver can't store enough fuel to keep you going for a prolonged period of time. When you're healthy, you can go 8, 9, 10, 11 hours without eating because you're healthy, your protective hormones are high, your stress hormones are low. And if you're in that state and you do intermittent fasting, you're just going to worsen your state furthermore. So yeah, let's get into number 5.
Very important. Why? Because we want to keep our cortisol lower. Increase cortisol, the stress hormone, we lower testosterone. We also want to keep estrogen on the low side, so you want to avoid soy.
So you mentioned 5, sleep. I agree, sleep is very important. Men who sleep 8 hours per night have 200% more testosterone levels than men who sleep 4 hours per night. Other studies show that every extra hour of sleep you get, you have 15% higher testosterone levels. So sleep is super important. So this advice is good for someone that is capable of sleeping and you're just going to sleep late. You have bad habits around that. So yes, sleeping longer will improve that. But some people, and this is most of the time when I work with clients, they want to go to sleep, but they just can't. So this goes back to the low carbs. If you're not eating enough carbohydrates, you're going to be stimulated and waking up at night. So that's a different problem, which is resolved by keeping your cortisol low, by eating enough carbohydrates. Eating too much protein in the evening, he mentioned to have decent amount of protein per meal. I personally recommend having less protein later in the night because protein is stimulating. So we have different stances on that. So let's see what it says next.
Products, especially soy protein isolates, which is in a lot of diet foods and like the fake meat and things like that. And then you want to avoid things that increase estrogen. So you want to do organic because pesticides, insecticides act like estrogen in the body. They're called estrogen mimickers or endocrine disruptors. There are certain supplements.
Yeah, number 6, spot on. Avoiding soy because it has phytoestrogens that mimic estrogen in the body, just like orange juice has phytoprogestins, which is protective and also has polyphenols. I'll say someone watching this, oh, but phytoestrogens don't work like this, they don't act like that. Okay, let's say you're right. Put that point aside about the phytoestrogens. The other thing that soy has is it has 5A or 5-alpha reductase inhibiting effects. So it prevents testosterone to DHT conversion, and DHT is extremely important for androgens, energy, all of the positive benefits of testosterone that you hear about. And besides estrogen lowering, I think the biggest one would be polyunsaturated fats, which are extremely estrogenic, mess up with the metabolic rate, completely lower your thyroid hormones. So I think that would be even bigger to avoid, which is polyunsaturated fats, which vegetable oils, nuts, things like that. And yeah, eating organic, definitely. But yeah, let's get into number 7.
Supplements that can also help you as well. The most important one is zinc, about 100 milligrams per day. This will actually work very well. Another good one that I recommend is the Korean red.
So he mentioned zinc, 100 milligrams per day. Zinc is definitely a very good supplement, micro mineral, you can also call it, for testosterone production, but only if you're deficient. I see a lot of guys promoting zinc. And when you look at studies, if you're not deficient and you supplement with zinc, it can actually lower your testosterone. So make sure you're actually deficient. Another thing is a lot of guys supplement with zinc, but they're not supplementing with copper, as 10 milligrams of zinc depletes 1 milligram of copper. So excessive zinc supplementation can lead to a copper deficiency. So making sure you have balance around that. Also, when you're getting a zinc supplement, make sure whatever supplement it is, it ends with ATE. For example, zinc citrate, zinc biglycinate and avoiding zinc oxide, IDE, though the bioavailability of those types of zincs is very low, so you're wasting your money. Also, I think 100 milligrams is very high per day. I would think 15 to 30 milligrams is much better and can, I think 100 milligrams is too much. But yeah, let's get into next.
Ginseng. This not only improves testosterone, but it's going to improve your energy. It's going to give you a sense of calmness. It'll give you stamina. It'll give you vitality. It's a really, really good herb. It's been used for a very long, long time with great success.
So you mentioned Korean red ginseng. I think those things should be used just the way you would use medicine. If you want to use it, sure. But the problem that we see nowadays is the impurities in supplements. Also, Korean red ginseng is an adaptogen. An adaptogen is something that brings your body to homeostasis in times of stress. But from what I've seen, when you look at adaptogens like ashwagandha, it really messes with your own ability to handle stress. So then you become depending on those things, and then it can lead to anxiety, anhedonia, things like that. So I would personally not use it. I know some people use it because it benefits them, but I would ask them and tell them that there's easier and better methods to improve their state rather than having to supplement. So that's my stance on that.
L-arginine will increase something called nitric oxide, which can increase testosterone. It's a good supplement. But remember, anytime you're doing supplements, they may not work if your diet isn't corrected. And if you don't know what to eat, I put a link down below. And then we have something.
Yeah, he's right. Supplements are to supplement a diet, for sure. So he mentioned L-arginine, which is, you could say, an active form of L-citrulline. So L-citrulline gets converted into L-arginine. Or the other way around, I can't remember exactly, but these two work the same, which increase nitric oxide production systemically. It's found also in like watermelon, hence watermelon increases blood flow production. But fundamentally, from a peat perspective, increasing nitric oxide production systemically is a stress state. It lowers your stress hormones, things like that. So I would personally not supplement with a lot of L-arginine. I don't know why he's using it specifically for testosterone optimization. Mostly what it does, it increases blood flow. It might increase erections, which from a lens looking at outside, it might seem like higher testosterone because testosterone is linked with better erections and sex drive, stamina, you could say. But that's driven through stress, just like a ketogenic diet can increase erections because you're increasing your stress, nitric oxide. But that's a stress response. A protective way that you can increase your blood flow is by increasing protective hormones. So it leads to vasodilation. So the veins relax, allows proper blood flow, rather than vasoconstriction, which is from stress hormones. But yeah, let's look at the next one.
Called D-aspartic acid, another really good compound to help increase testosterone. Last few points, if you have a fatty liver.
So he mentioned D-aspartic acid. When you look at studies, there has been studies showing that it increases testosterone. But when you actually read the studies, they're sponsored by companies that sell D-aspartic acid. When you look at later studies showing how D-aspartic acid affects testosterone, one study showed that it didn't do anything. Another study in higher doses actually led to lower testosterone levels. So I would avoid it. I don't think it's something to use. When it comes to these supplements, things like that, you really want to have a broad picture. Same with soy. Some people say soy actually boosts testosterone, and you look at who the study is sponsored by, like Soy Joy. So you want to be careful. Also, how is the testosterone increased? Is it through the estrogen system? Is it stopping testosterone to DHT conversion so testosterone increases? So there's a lot of variables to consider. Next.
And you're looking down, you have a gut, you have a fatty liver. That's going to inhibit your ability to make testosterone. So you want to work on removing the fat from your liver by doing a moderate protein, low carb, ketogenic diet. Also, if your iron is too high, that can suppress your testosterone and it can destroy your liver. So I always recommend, if you're male, not to take iron supplements. And even
yeah, it's a good point. Ray Peat talks about this as well. Hence why don't consume vitamin C with a high iron-rich food, because vitamin C increases iron absorption. Rather have caffeine, coffee, which stops the absorption of iron, because iron can lower testosterone levels. Most people who have low iron levels in their blood, it's nothing to do with the iron, but mostly to do with their thyroid. And with the fatty liver, and yeah, issues with the liver will lead to lower testosterone, because the liver is essential for converting inactive thyroid to active thyroid. So yeah.
Postmenopausal women who are no longer menstruating should be careful too, because iron in excess is very harmful to your liver and hormones, and it's very difficult for your body to get rid of iron. So you want to be careful not to get it in supplements, which...
From a Ray Peat perspective, it is quite simple to lower iron. You just stop eating iron. You just go on like a high cheese, high milk diet. You don't eat grains or like meats that are high in iron, and quite quickly you will deplete yourself of iron.
You might even not be aware of. When you read the label, it's like, wow, I've been taking all this iron. No, I wouldn't recommend that. And statins, I already talked about that point. All right, there you go. 7 ways to boost your testosterone.
So yeah, this was the review of his video. I think a lot of the things that he mentioned are quite solid, but a lot of the things are completely wrong. I would see why on the mass, because the video probably has millions of views, why it would benefit some people, because people have completely messed up diets and just going from something extremely bad to something less bad, they'll see positive results. But here on this channel, the goal is optimal. How does your body actually work? What truly works long term? How does your body work fundamentally from a hormonal perspective? How everything interplays. And a lot of the things that he said just don't make sense. I see why he recommends low carb, keto, intermittent fasting. It's because most people are lazy and they can't sustain a proper diet. So if you just tell them not to eat a third of their macronutrients or don't eat for 16 hours, the probability of them to lose weight is higher because they're in a restricted state. But if you're smart and you understand principles, you can do it properly. And that was the goal with this video. So that being said, hopefully you got some value out of this. And yeah, I'll see you later. God bless.